A goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome back, one and all, to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. Yes, the big coats are back on outside and the heating is on inside as the weather is turning. But alas, the lady that is Huddersfield Town is not for turning, as the clothing prescription to watch the Terriers is hat and scarf that you can use to cover your eyes. As Huddersfield Town toil, struggle and lose, which now makes it 7 defeats in 8 games in a League One campaign that initially promised that we'd put the drudgery of the last few years behind us. The only man insane enough to join me, Matt Shaw, today is my partner in crime. It's Ian Kilroy Silk. Killer, tell us why we haven't released this on Monday evening like normal.
Oh, do I have to go into this? Well, first off,
You're
Matt,
under the
I
bus
just want to
already,
find out
mate.
again. We are the only people here. Everyone else is too depressed to fancy this one. There was a little bit of a power issue up at our place in Shepley on Monday night. That's why that one was delayed. And obviously then we went into the Birmingham game Tuesday, and we've all been pretty down since then. And this is the only time we've managed to pick ourselves up and face what we're going to have to go through in the next 30 to 45 minutes.
We go again. Hey, that's what they all say, isn't it? Okay, Reading 2, Huddersfield Town 1. Let's start there. Town now in danger of the fans becoming apathetic. So I wrote all these notes Saturday, so that they're 4 or 5 days in, but I still don't really feel any different. Town are now sort of, like I say, the fans are, there's little bits of anger amongst the fan base, little bits of sulking, a lot of name calling, but the general feeling is heading towards apathy for a lot of people, and we've seen it reflected in the ticket sales, didn't we, for the Birmingham game? No one really wants to do this podcast, hence it's just 2 of us, and it was still going to be 2 of us on Monday night regardless anyway, because those 2 suckers are a glutton for it. And although, Cosy, to be fair, he's got no life apart from when he goes to Spain, and that's where he is in the minute. So there we do. I love you, Cosy, mate. I'm sure he'd have put his oar in. Killer, we asked for a change in the midfield shape against Reading. We got it. Hogg and Kasumu partnered together in more of a flat midfield 4 rather than the previous number 6 being down here and the 2 number 8s way up yonder. I just felt like it kind of got the balance wrong in the terms of personnel. When I saw the team, I was just like, oh, Hogg and Kasumu, there's not a lot of control there. And I felt that was, you've got a leg man in Kasumu who's not the best on the ball, although having said that, he got 100% passing accuracy against Reading. And then you've got a former leg man who is only slightly better on the ball in Hogg, with Evans played more as a number 10 or an attacking 8, isn't he? But anyway, we'll talk about Evans later. But before we could see how it got going, yet another warm-up injury. And this is the 3rd one this season, isn't it? In what's only been 5 weeks? Healy, was carrying something in his groin and it pranged at Rotherham. Hogg, probably the anomaly of the 3, as his groin went in the warm-up against Blackpool. And we've heard a little bit more since then, haven't we, on Lee Nichols? And he'd been playing with a ligament issue in his elbow, of which I'm struggling with one at the minute from carrying kids upstairs, which is fun. And then he's gone down in the warm-up and he's banged it, and he's decided it's too painful and he's got to go for his operation, and now he's out for 2 months. Maxwell with pericarditis, inflammation around the heart muscles, which is a horrible thing to have, and I think everyone would wish Chris Maxwell the very best with that, and it's good to see him back in training. Jacob Chapman's in, but you throw in that Helix hamstring went in midweek as well, and injuries have really taken the piss for years now with Huddersfield, haven't they? And we're hearing Danny Ward's injured, which isn't news. It's just such frustration, isn't there, with the injury? It just feels like tactically we've not quite got it right, but you can't get on a roll because everyone gets bloody injured all the time.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of work out why it's happening. with Nichols, there was a few murmurs online, wasn't they, saying, "Oh, what we're doing in warm up to injure so many people." And now, when Nichols is as a keeper, you normally warm up separate to the outfield players anyway. So there's no real link between a goalkeeper getting injured, in my mind, anyway, in a warm up, than there is outfielders in warm ups. I think you can.
No,
if
he's
there's three
taken it into the warm up, hasn't he? Which is the main thing.
And even flaring up, it's not like they're overworking in the warm up, and that's why Nichols has got injured as well as Healy and Hogg previously. They're very separate things. I think it's important to make that distinction. I think the injury record we have, and to be fair, Matt, how many years is it now since this has been like this? Maybe 2. Last year was as bad. Nichols, to be fair, always misses game time himself. I don't think he's ever been an ever present
player final. I think in the playoff season he possibly was, although we had Jamal Blackman for a couple of games. Played all 46. I might go look at that while you're explaining.
Yeah, just again, that's me guessing. That's no prep going into this podcast on Nichols' injury record, but it just feels like he has missed quite a few games in his town career, so it's not unexpected that he gets injured, because every time he does come back, it makes a massive difference. Or it did when Warnock was here and he came back at the end of that season, I think. And
yeah, it did. Yeah,
made a bit of a difference. But the thing is with Town, when you've got a budget constraints like Town do, and we're going out to buy players, we often buy players with injury records. That's kind of why we kind of are attractive to certain players that have played at a good level. Like Reece Healy, to be fair to him, had scored a lot of goals over in France before. He's come over. We know he did okay when he first came over at Watford and in his few games that he had there. But his injury record is probably why he's with us. And now that's not just for him. That's the same with a lot of players at Town. And that's the kind of club we are. When we're going out to get better players, most of them come with certain injury records or some downside somewhere. And unfortunately, that's the club we are. And we have to just deal with it and get on. It just feels like already, 9 games into this season, we're facing so many
kicking the balls, isn't it?
Key injuries. And it's definitely not what we need on the back of the form that we're in at the moment.
So Lee Nichols played 43 games in the Championship that season. And he only missed 3 league games. The first 2 was because Ryan Schofield started the season. And I think people remember poor Ryan Schofield, that goal against Mitrovic, where he's literally 5 yards out of play, isn't he? And the linesman somehow doesn't give the goal kick or corner. It should have been, shouldn't it? When Sorba whacks it back to him. And he just hoofs it at Mitrovic, who falls over and it goes in the net. It's one of the most horrendous goals you'll see. And then, unfortunately, for Ryan Schofield, he was out from then on. But fortunately for Lee Nichols. And then the last game of the season, Jamal Blackman went in, and Jamal Blackman played in the cup games as well. So the FA Cup games, I should say. So yeah, that season he was pretty good. But the season after, that's when he picked up the first injury, wasn't it? Was it his knee that he injured? I'm trying to think. Was it Vasily who got the injury? But he missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games before playing once, and then been out for another 3. So he didn't miss a massive amount that season, which is interesting. So that's 23-24. So that's last season. 22-23 was when he did the knee, wasn't it? In January, and we had to go out and get Tamas Vasilic. Shoulder. Sorry, he did the shoulder. I think he did the knee last year. So he's missed 1, 2, 3.
But that is quite a lot, Matt, for a goalkeeper. That's quite a lot of injuries in a short period of time.
Yeah, he missed 18 league games last season through that shoulder injury, which wasn't ideal, but he came back and pulled us out, and he pulled us out quite a lot, doesn't he? Let's move on to the game itself. I mean, Town made a fairly reasonable start to this game. Evans looked really good, didn't he, at the start? A number of good runs, good passes. I think Callum Marshall's looked really good last 2 games, not in terms of in front of goal, but dropping into spaces and linking. But the passes he's made, I think, have been really good, really crisp early. Good decision-making, good early decision-making from him. And I think he's just... I know Town have gone backwards and regressed, but I think a couple of games, and he did impress me a little bit. Other than that, I mean, Town, there was a good early pass to Karoma, got us in a good area. Then we scored, didn't we? Which was probably the first chance of the game. Evans gets upended after another good run, and he takes the free kick, and Matty Pearson, starting for the first time since the Walsall game, shows that he's probably got the strongest neck muscles in Keighley, doesn't he? That's actually, I think it doesn't look a great goal, but actually to crane your neck like that is not really easy. I don't think the normal man in the street can do that, can they? He's definitely strong around, definitely neck strong to steal a wrestling cliche there.
No, it's a great finish from him. It is, and he's so good on. Whenever we have a free kick, he's always the first one to get the rebound. He's always there. He's It's been pretty strange to me why he's not been getting game time. I know he got sent off against Walsall, but it definitely seems out of favour when it comes to Duff and he's selecting his centre backs, doesn't he? He doesn't seem to be his kind of player for whatever reason. Matty Glennon kind of is mates with Pearson, isn't he? I think that's pretty clear. And there were a few mentions on the commentary. If you look quickly on the highlights, you can hear Glennon saying it's not been the greatest start and a frustrating start for Pearson. And you can just tell he looked ecstatic to score the goal. And to be fair, Matt, I thought we started pretty well in that game. And Evans, like you say, was really good. I thought Evans in that first 25 minutes, to me, it shows why I don't think you can fit Wiles and Evans in at the same time. I think both of them want to be that free man that can do whatever they want to do to drag us forward a little bit. And Evans really did take it upon himself to do that and drive centrally. I think often when you've got them both in there, one's kind of out wide right a little bit and one's out wide left in the centre of the park. Yeah. And they're just kind of, the gaps are massive. I've got issues with the actual setup that we went with in the first place. I thought Michael Duff's becoming more of a bit of a lottery when it comes to picking his starting 11. It's really difficult, isn't it, for anyone to try and pick what we're going to go with on a game by game basis now. It's like against Reading, we had both wing backs that we expected to start more or less all the season subbing in Miller and Sorensen. Okay, Miller, you could put it down to 2 injuries, but Headley's been pretty poor for weeks, but he's still getting game time. And even to be fair, Evans coming back in after he'd been kind of shifted aside a little bit, and then Kasumu starting, who for me is a fantastic player. But again, Matt, I'm with you. Does him and Hogg work together? Straight away, thinking we've tried this all last season, it didn't work. We've tried it bits and bats since Kasumu's got here, and it's never really clicked. It just felt like to me that starting 11 would just, I don't know, it didn't really make too much sense. But to be fair to us, when we did start,
I didn't see how we could create. That was my issue, Killer. I didn't.
No, and that's it. Marshall's busy, and he was busy again, Matt, in that first 10, 20 minutes, and his positioning sense is good. He's like that sacrificial striker that does the work without getting the just desserts. He's not the guy that scores the goals. He's the guy that creates the space for Koroma to score the goals. But we're just torn a little bit. But that start was really good, and most of it came from Anthony Evans. To be fair, he was really good to start off with, and his free kick was a really unfortunate that didn't go in direct. Never mind needing the Pearson header to put us one up.
Yeah, I thought we were on for it. And when we scored first, I said in a Reading preview, I said a lot of this might depend on who scores first. If we score first, you guys score first, then we'll fold. And it seemed to be going all right, didn't it? And then all of a sudden, Evans who makes a really good tackle on the edge of our own box, and it falls to Hoggy. And I think at first I might have done Hoggy a bit of a disservice because I thought at first Hoggy should be looking wide to Headley. But when you watch it back on the replay, he plays it into Koroma, and then if he can just lay it off Town are in behind on a counter attack. So I'll apologise to Hoggy for initially thinking that he had a part to play in this. He didn't. But Koroma's touch is absolutely garbage, and Koroma's touch has been garbage now for 4 games, Killer. And I know you're a fan, I'm a fan, but when his head's like this, I just think you have to take him out of the team. You just can't rely on the guy.
But then we don't like scoring though, Matt. I understand that, Matt. I understand that, and that pass was sloppy, and he's been poor for games. But if he's not scoring, who's scoring for us? Because Marshall's not a goal scorer. And we'll go on to other strikers that have played since then. And I only think Koroma isn't the best. He's not. He has massive down games effectively. But I honestly think he's still the only one we have who can score the goals that he does. So even if he's not on fire,
streak, though, I think you have to manage the streak with Koroma. I think he either gets complacent or I don't know, something switches, doesn't it, up here? And I don't think he does it intentionally. I don't think he's a lazy human being or anything like that. From bits of here, he's actually a really nice guy who works really hard. But as soon as Michael Duff said he had a bad training session, a little part where he goes, where nothing happens with Josh Koroma now for 3, 4, 5 months. And it's 4 games, it's League One, and you just expect a little bit more. And that pass was just sort of synonymous with the last 3, 4 games. I mean, including Birmingham in that, by the way. His cameo against Birmingham wasn't great either. And I was just disappointed because he's a player that we've championed. We've still got the conch. It's still on this table. But it was disappointing. And then not to put it all on Koroma, because Nigel Lonvike recovers the situation and then gets caught by Harvey Nibbs. And to be honest, I think Harvey Nibbs has got lucky there because it looks like he tackles Lonvike and it hits the Reading player accidentally and falls perfectly for him just to smack it into the net. And that's one player we were linked with a year ago, Harvey Nibbs. So and then the second one's obviously done us against Birmingham that we've tried to get. So it's definitely kicking the balls territory for Huddersfield Town at the minute. And Harvey Nibbs scored. You can't apportion any blame. slapped that silly into that top corner, hasn't he? And it's 1-1, and it's at this point where you think, right, here we go again. How strong are you mentally? And Huddersfield Town just weren't again, and it was poor. And I thought there was a lot of after this. I thought there was a lot of poor performances, and the second goal. I mean, initially I was really annoyed at the referee for the second goal because the corner looks like it's either a double touch or a rolling ball, and that was my first impression. And you come away thinking, bloody referees again. We've been shafted a lot this season. I mean, the person who said that evens out over the course of the season is talked the most amount of bollocks I've ever seen watching Huddersfield Town these last 20 years, honestly. But when I've watched it back, you can argue that he does touch it once. The second touch is still in the quadrant. So a Reading fan could quite easily say, look, it's still in the quadrant. Therefore, he's setting himself and then he's taking it. And the ball maybe stops just him. And if you blame the referee for this, I'm afraid it just lets the players off. And that's not what I want to do. And Nigel Lonvike's not had the best game, has he? The offside as well. Matty Pearson's Nigel Lonvike is. And Nigel Lonvike makes an attempt at the ball, and that can put doubt into the goalkeeper's mind. So you have to give offside, unfortunately, despite Matty Pearson being the unlucky one. It's a great header. It's a stunning ball in that from Evans.
It's amazing.
It's a great ball. Matty Pearson's got a head like a cement mixer, hasn't he? He just bang, and in it goes. And you thought when that goes, and you think, yes, they've done it. You know what I mean? They've pulled themselves back. They had a little 5-minute spell. They've pulled themselves back into this. And again, adversity strikes, and then we just went to crap, didn't we? And that corner, I think from a Reading point of view, if there's any Reading fans listening to this, I apologise, but I thought Reading were pretty poor, if I'm honest. I didn't think they were really that good. I thought they were probably one of the worst teams we played this season, but they probably say that about us, so that's fine. But I just thought Reading were there Reading were absolutely there for the strumming when we went 1-0 up. They're all protesting, the distracted what's going on off the field. The atmosphere there wasn't great, although a couple of them did try and turn it around a little bit. That's when a team who's serious about being promoted goes and piles on, makes it worse. We didn't. We're Charity FC. We go there and make things better for people. And it was frustrating because certain things happened in that second half which really annoyed me, and players just and I listened to Michael Duff. I understand exactly what he's saying. I'm really annoyed Stephen Chicken got this in first on a live podcast, but it's in our group chat in the post-match recovery with Jay and Joel as well, and mentioned that Anthony Evans is like Steven Gerrard. When we start losing, he starts hitting 80-yard Hollywood passes. He takes too many touches. That scissor kick. What are you doing? Just let it land and volley it. And he starts trying to do much. I don't know whether that's like a saviour complex he might have had at Bristol Rovers or something. I think he's a good player and he's capable of doing things. But I think when you're surrounded by players of a similar ability, you've just got to stick to what you're doing rather than trying to take everything on yourself. And do you know what? He's trying to step up and take the bull by the horns, and I like that. But it's not going well. And yeah, so I got a little bit frustrated with him. I got really frustrated with Josh Koroma. I thought that was a really slack performance all round from him, and I'm disappointed because I was with you, with the 20 and 40 thing, and he still could. But I wanted, and Bojan Radulovic came on and actually looked quite lively, didn't he?
He did. Yeah.
Spell, and you're starting to think maybe Bojan, we can build something around up at the top end, and there's all sorts of disappointment there. But I think the main disappointing thing is that once Reading had scored to go 2-1 up, I don't think we look like equalising, and that's what annoys me. Even though Town's XG is 1.9 to Reading's 0.3, and Duff said afterwards, and I like Michael Duff a lot, and he said afterwards we outplayed them, and I kind of sit there and look at it and go, but did we? Did we just have a load of shots from range, a load of block shots, which add that XG level up rather than anything really clear cut? And we're just not creating anything clear cut at the minute, and it's just a frustrating watch. And a lot of that is the work on the wing backs. The wing backs are getting pushed back a little bit. Brody was okay, I thought, at wing back. I mean, his final balling's not amazing, but he had that shot, didn't he, which was tipped over. But Mikael Miller came on, which was good for us. He had a good start to the season, but we still didn't create anything really tangible. And I think that's where players get frustrated. Like Evans got gets frustrated. You can see him wear his heart on his sleeve quite a lot, can't you? And he doesn't keep things quiet or bottled up very well. I thought Ben Wiles came on and he was sort of like under the radar, okay, decent enough, trying to get into decent areas, but again, nothing happened. And if you're a team that's serious about top 6 and serious about top 2, you can't go somewhere like Reading where it's all falling in around them and play like that and expect to come away with 3 points, Killer.
You can't give goals away. You can't give the game away. I actually thought we were the better team. We didn't create enough. No, we didn't. I expected more from Reading. I thought they'd try and target us with the long balls like everybody else is doing. And they didn't really do that. They didn't kind of play to our weaknesses that Birmingham did on Tuesday night. But Reading didn't. They didn't. They tried to play their own way. And now most teams that try and play their own way find it hard against us. We're not that bad if they make it easy for us. But we've still found our way to give 2 stupid goals away. Honestly, like I say, Lonvik on the first one. It's Karoma's fault for that sloppy pass backwards, absolutely. But Nige, he's got the ball and he's got so much time to get rid of it. But he's a casual player. We've mentioned this before. He plays with a style that's pretty laid back and while sort of doing some favours in some aspects of his game, that was just too casual for where you are. And now you have to know, in League One, at any professional level, they're going to be on you too quick. You don't have that time at the edge of your box to mess about like you did. It was lucky when it fell to Nibs and he put it in, absolutely. But then the corner goal, Matt, to me, if the ball's rolling or not, doesn't matter. Town should not let that goal in. If that's rolling or not rolling, they still scored the goal. It's not a problem. They'd still scored the goal whether it were flat in the quadrant anyway. It was a set corner play where we had the numbers on the corner taker and the receiver of the ball, and they've still passed it round 2 versus 2 into the edge of into the box. And it's a lucky finish through a crowd, really. Chapman could do absolutely nothing about it. But the actual play from the corner into the box is just slack. And now we started this season pretty resolute in defence. We didn't give that many goals away. We were solid. And now we're just gifting them away. Blackpool outplayed us. Northampton outplayed us. Reading didn't outplay us. But we've come away having lost that game and created nothing. And there's character issues, I think, when you're looking at the players and their belief. Karoma, I thought, was shocking when he came on, like you said. But that's because he's personally slighted that he's subbing after being top goal scorer, in my opinion. And you can argue all you want that he shouldn't be doing that. He's a professional footballer. It's fine. You can argue that. But the reality is that's what happens. That's what footballers are people.
I mean, he started against Reading, didn't he? So that's not an excuse for the start against Reading. No. But Birmingham, yes, yeah, you could say.
Sorry, in regards to that one. But you're getting all these little things during games now where I think decisions taken off the field in regards to setup are just bubbling out a little bit. And you can see the little beginnings of turmoil. We're on a massive losing streak now. And things aren't great. But Reading were there to take something positive from. We spoke about in the preview, in the drive-in, that a 1-1 would have been fine, a draw, just something to build on. We can't be boom or bust all season. You're going to have to grind out draws when you don't deserve them, or when you can't break a team down, you still don't give goals away, and you take a point and move on with something positive. The fans are starting to get a little bit churny, a little bit turny against what's going on the field. A point would have been a good start, but we are gifting 0.3 on the XG. I hate XG. I think it's a load of nonsense. But when you're looking at it like that, we really did not give any chances away, but still conceded 2 goals and got nothing from a game where we were fine in, and we didn't dictate play, but the flow of the game wasn't against us. It didn't feel like we were holding on. Tuesday, Birmingham, very different. But the Reading game especially, to me, was a really big warning sign of where we are at the moment, because they weren't great, but we gifted them the win. And no team that want to be at the top end of any division at the end of the season can do that as often as we do it at the moment.
Let's move on to Birmingham. And I don't really have much to say on Reading. Although one person who does is Alex from Elm Park Royals, who sent us this little clip on his thoughts on the game from Saturday.
Saturday was a weird game of 2 halves. I think Huddersfield controlled the first half. I wouldn't use the word dominated necessarily, but they certainly controlled the first half, particularly centrally. I don't think Reading were really in the game, especially in midfield. The game very much bypassed our central midfield in that first half, and it's a strange one to kind of sum up, because I think Huddersfield lost the game, not necessarily Reading winning the game themselves. And when you look at the chances that were created, particularly during the first half, Huddersfield probably felt hard done by to go in at 1-1. But of course, the issue then comes down to the fact that Reading have capitalised on Huddersfield mistakes and scored 2 goals really off the 2 mistakes. One from obviously the poor pass from Koroma, which is intercepted, and then I don't really understand what the central defender is doing when he doesn't really get rid of the ball quick enough. I think it's Lundvik doesn't get rid of the ball quick enough, and Nib steals it off him, and it's a 1-on-1 against the keeper at that point. And the second goal, it's a difficult one to say that Reading deserved it, but I think that we looked better at the start of the second half without necessarily creating anything, and the stats kind of back that up when you look at how many chances both teams created. I think Huddersfield had 19 or 20 shots, and Reading only had about 6 with 2 on target, and we scored both of them. But the second goal, you can argue it's not a not a legal corner. I don't know whether the ball's rolling or whether he touches it twice. I think it's probably one of those 2 things. So maybe not that it should count, but equally, the goal doesn't come directly from it. It's the players managed to intercept the 1-2, and the ball's gone back out to the edge of the area. So there's enough opportunity to stop it, and I don't think it's not a crying advantage for that corner to have been taken. Although, admittedly, a little fortunate for us. And after that goal went in, I don't really think Huddersfield didn't do enough creatively going forwards. It's easy to look at the shot count and say, yeah, there was a lot of chances for Huddersfield and a lot of opportunity, but I really struggled to remember many chances in the second half, apart from I think there was one corner which David Button saved, and there was a corner which looked like it was actually going directly in, which he punched away, and then there was the offside goal in the second half as well. It's difficult to really say that Huddersfield deserved to win the game. Equally, I don't think Huddersfield are quite as bad as maybe Huddersfield fans are considering that they might be at the minute. I know I've only watched you once, so it's obviously I'm not the expert here, and you probably are, but I don't think you're quite as bad as maybe you consider, and you need a result from somewhere. But equally, there is some obvious deficiencies in that Huddersfield side, particularly second half. It really felt like a lack of oomph, if that's the right word, at the start of the second half, and I think that's kind of gave Reading the impetus to go on and kind of control that first 10-15 minutes after the half-time break, which ultimately led to getting the victory. So yeah, it was a good game. Strange one to kind of look back on, because it's not often that Reading kind of probably are not the better side and then end up winning anyway. So definitely pleased for that, and I think we'll probably see each other both, hopefully, towards the upper end of the table later on this season.
All right, thanks for that, Alex. Very magnanimous there, Alex. He thinks the corner shouldn't have been allowed, but it's not often you find fans as level-headed as Alex. So thanks very much for that, Alex. Let's move on to Birmingham. I don't have anything from a Birmingham fan, because we tend not to do that with midweek games. But everyone thought we were going to get walloped coming into this game. I mean, perspective is very difficult. I had this conversation with Dave Hartrick, because when you're not a Town fan, and that's not to do Dave down, I think he's more of a Town fan than he makes out on his podcast, and so is Stephen. The point he made to me on when we were chatting on WhatsApp was this is a much improved performance, and if we'd have played like this against Northampton, against Reading, etc., we'd have probably won those games. And I think that's fine, but I think as football fans, it's very hard to see positives when it's the 7th defeat in 8 games, isn't it? Your logic, your patience wears thin. Everything just it's end of the world syndrome, isn't it? Where you've lost 7 and 8, and it doesn't matter how well you play for whatever length of time against whoever it is. You lose another game, and it's 7 and 8, and all of a sudden you've got 3 points from, what's that, 24 or something. Although 2 of them are cup games, so they don't count. But it's 4 league defeats in a row as well. The first time we've lost 4 league defeats since Danny Schofield was in charge. I mean, 7 and 8. I don't think we've been 7 and 8 since the Premier League. So it's not good. We're 15th in League One. Huddersfield fans aren't, and I include myself in that, and it's others in the WhatsApp group we've got as well. I don't think you can look at it too rationally when, even though you've played the best team in the league, who are going to get 100 points and piss it, basically. We go there and lose 1-0, and the start was good. The first 20, 25 minutes was very, very good. But Birmingham tried to play out from the back, played into our strengths. Miller was pretty good, I thought, in that opening spell. He should have scored. I thought he dragged that shot wide, or he should have put it on target, I would say. And I thought for 20, 25 minutes, Town were good. But in that 20, 25 minutes, you could just see Birmingham smack the odd long ball here and there. And they were testing, weren't they? They were testing for weaknesses. And they were giving it away. All the Huddersfield fans were like, how much money have you spent, you crap? No. They were looking on. It's like when you go in and you knock in different areas looking for weaknesses, isn't it? And they worked us out after 25 minutes. They worked us out, completely worked us out, and we had no response to it. And we had a slight disagreement on WhatsApp in terms of what Michael Duff's preparation over the pre-season, etc. was, and that's fine. But basically, a better team works out how to beat us, and did. And again, it's things that you have to sort of. I don't really like questioning people at the club because they know far more than me. They know far more than you. But when you've had 5 or 6, 7 or 8 games now where somebody just puts a player behind a wing back and ruins you, like Northampton did, like Birmingham did, you kind of have to ask questions and go, why are we not picking up on this sooner? Why are we not doing something to stop this? Alfie played in that spot. I thought Sorensen played quite well on Tuesday. I know he's been out of form. He made a great block at the end. Brody, I thought, started really poorly and made a number of mistakes, and then grew into the game and actually did really well. Tom Lee's got burnt for pace on the left-hand side. Why is Tom Lee's on the left-hand side in the first place when he's in the middle? But the goal was just so easy. It was just the ball down the side every time. Just the ball down the side. It does us every time. Blackpool did it every time. Ball down the side. Wing backs, full backs, whatever you want to play. It's killing us. Absolutely killing us. And they did it again to almost score in the second. But the ball down the side, Jay Stansfield, who, to be fair, had missed a couple of chances in the first half. He could have scored from. Well, you'd expect a £15 million striker to score, I would be honest. Cuts in, does really well. And Alfie May drifts into the space. And it's frustrating because Matty Pearson's with Alfie May, and then all of a sudden Matty Pearson's in the goal trying to protect it. And I get it from a defensive point of view. You go and you try and make the block because the keeper's come out. But if he'd have stayed with Alfie May, he might have got the tackle in as well. I don't know. But it's, Alfie May moves in and it's a goal. And we've been done behind the left wing back this time. And it's frustrating how we're going through the same things. It's Groundhog Day, isn't it? It's the same things happening, the same weaknesses, it's just the same game. We're watching the same game every week, whether it's Birmingham, whether it's Northampton, whether it's Reading. Although Reading's slightly different, but it's pretty much the same game, and the same things are happening. And at some point, you've just got to say, look, is anybody actually pointing this out? In terms of your analysts, I'm sure they are. But when you get done every time by it, you start thinking, well, what's going on here? Is this the manager who's too resistant to change, or does he want to make sure Plan A is absolutely watertight before moving something else? What's the process here? And I'd like to understand that in the pre-match interviews and stuff. Michael Duff played the 4-4-2 diamond a little bit, and he shifted to 4-4-2 diamond, didn't he, in this game, Killer, to try and get us back into it by bringing Hoggy on, who sat and stuff. And that's good, but Town, the Plan A, Plan B argument, Town have got no Plan B. At the minute, Town don't really have a Plan A, and it's not working. So you're caught between two arguments. Plan A is not really working. Why would they have a Plan B? Do you know what I mean? You've got to have you've got to get your system right. You've got to get everything right before something goes wrong, and you can build on something for change. And I'm a bit at a loss at the minute how we're getting done the same way every game, and it's still happening. I mean, he put Brody right wing back against Reading against Ibachman, and that worked in defensively. I thought Brody worked back, but he never got caught out of position. He never got caught too far upfield, but it took away from the creativity. So you're altering, and maybe if we'd have played a slightly different midfield, I don't know, it could have been different. What I want to say before I turn it over to you, I thought Kasumi was excellent in this game. I thought he was really excellent, and he was good against Reading. And the work he's got through, and the work he's trying to get through. I know passing's not his strong suit, but the amount of work he's got through, and the tackles he's put in, and the interceptions, and tracking back. There was one where we got done by a long ball in the first half. I think it was Pearson got done, and Sumu came right back in, didn't he, and stopped the attack. I thought that was brilliant. And Alfie May did miss a sitter, didn't he? He gave us that one, didn't he? Just for
it's one of the worst misses I've ever seen. That one, Matt.
Yeah,
that is. If he leaves it, is it in? I think it's going in anyway, isn't it? And
yeah, it is. Yeah, and he heads it over the bar, and it's. I think. But thanks for that one, Alfie, because it could have been bad if that had gone in. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to be too critical of this Birmingham game, who had a lot of fans there and expectations are high, and they're reveling in it at the minute. So it's hard to take that out and isolate it. And I think if you do take it out and isolate it, it's not a terrible performance, but it's again something whereby I think after 25 minutes we created nothing again. And the worry is that we're now starting to concede silly goals, although the Birmingham one was avoidable, not silly. It was avoidable, and we're not creating anything anymore. And that's the worry. And I look at the defense, and I initially I thought all our issues were in midfield, but after sort of looking at the defense, I'm starting to think our problems are more defensively. And I don't mean in terms of, I think a few things have really annoyed me in the last 3 or 4 games. And do you remember Simon Grayson back in 2012-13? He used to really moan, and I knew it were about Paul Dixon, constantly about Paul Dixon. But he'd always say defenders don't sense danger, and it's frustrating. You look at Headley against Blackpool, that header where Headley's front, Headley's the back, the front and back, doesn't follow him, doesn't sense the danger. You look at Nigel Lonvike against Reading, doesn't sense the danger. You look at us playing that Birmingham playing the ball down the wing back, and we're ambling back, don't sense the danger. And all of a sudden, we've stopped being as resolute, like you said. We're not sensing danger. And the defence are kind of, I think for this midfield to click, they have to be closer together, but they can only be closer together if the defence pushes up suitably enough. And the problem is, if you'd have said, what's our defence going to be at the start of the season, you'd have gone Hellick, Spencer, Balker. And now Balker's injured. That was huge. Hellick's injured, brought in Nigel. But we've got Tom Lees and Matty Pearson, and these guys are slow. Okay, they're not bad players. They're good players, but the good players on the edge of their own box, they're not good players running back to it. And the problem is, you've got his success at Barnsley was really built on an athletic defense who could push up and squeeze that midfield space so that your number 6 could dictate, and then the other 2 could move into attacking areas. Our back 3, if it pushes up, gets done for pace horrendously. And then our back 3 pushes back because it's getting done for pace, the midfield opens up, and that defensively. And I think Nigel Lundvike's a player that we have who provides a solution. I think Hellick, to a point, maybe does, although Hellick's strength isn't running back to his own goal either, defending the box. Balker is good at that, but he's going to be out for a while. Spencer's not too bad, although Brody does switch off a little bit at times, but he's young, and that's part of the learning curve. But for me, the back 3 is causing us all sorts of issues, and playing 2 number 6s helped solve that a little bit against Reading, but I think it's got to be changed, Killer. I think it has to be. You have to look at your personnel, and you have to realise that if you're playing Tom Lees and Matty Pearson, they can't stand on the halfway line and be susceptible to these balls over the top, because they will naturally drop back. They will naturally adage, and that's to me where we're struggling. We're really struggling. If someone then goes and stands behind the wing back, to be honest, they get pushed back first, and then someone goes and stands behind the wing back.
Yep.
If they're pushed right up, the wing back's fine. And for me, this is where our problem is, and it's personnel driven. It's not Tom Lees' fault that he's not Linford Christie. Do you know what I mean? That's an old reference. I should make that make it more up to date. It's not Matty Pearson's fault that he's not Usain Bolt. I'm just, who's that American sprinter? I can't remember his name. What's his name? Oh, I can't remember. It's decent, but they're not fast. You can't make them something they're not. So make them something they are, and shift to a back four. I know that's music to your ears.
Oh, man.
Shift to a back
the
four.
One. That's what I'm after.
Shift to a back four. Have Lees and Pearson on the edge of the box. And then, because this is maybe why he's going the diamond, because then he's got your little conduits between, you know what I mean? But you might have to sacrifice a striker to make this work. Two up front as well. It's not going to work. And we've got a lot of strikers who are good second strikers. Karoma, Marshall, Freddie. None of these guys do the hard work up front. The one who can really sort of play solo that you'd be comfortable with is Bojan Radulovic, and he's not quick. So I think it needs a change. It's not Michael Duff's fault. It's not working. It's just personnel for me. And I think with the personnel we've got to go back and get points on the board. Otherwise, you're in trouble. The fans are turning. The fans are turning against Mark Cartwright. Mark Cartwright's not playing midfield or centre back, but the fans are turning. The fans are turning on Michael Duff. The fans are turning on Kevin Nagle. And we're 15th in League One and lost 7 and 8. That's why they are. It's the right to do that. But we've got to stop this snowball, which has turned into something much larger, just by switching the system and just by defending properly. Switch to a 4. I mean, Josh Ruffles will have to come back in because he's the only left back, isn't he? Really in the squad. I've seen not a left back. 4-3-3 works for me. Killer. Which can change to a 3-4-3 when you get your people back. It probably means Bojan's going to play a lot more minutes than maybe he would have done ordinarily. But for me, you've got to change this now, because we've got so many weaknesses. People know what these weaknesses are. You've got to roll. You've got to adapt. The best manager we've had in the last since David Wagner was Carlos Corberán, and he adapted so quickly. Maybe not at first when he thought it was Bielsa Mark II, but after that, his ability to adapt a game, to be flexible, and to move players around was unbelievably good. And you've just got to be I think we just need to be a bit smarter in what we're doing at the minute. It's nice having a philosophy. It's nice trying to do things right. It's nice trying to build things, but we've not got the tools to do it at the minute. So you have to just go back and just say, look, we're going to have to put a pin in this for a month, 2 months, while Hellick, Bolker, and etc. back, and then we'll come back to it.
It's just dumb. Now, at this point, it's dumb. What's happening at the moment is dumb, because we've lost 7 out of 8, 2 cup games, absolutely, no problem. But we've been found out. The only changes I've seen Duff make at the beginning of a game going into it is, like you say, we've had our back 3 have to sit a little bit deeper because they're slow. And when that happens, the ball's over at wing-backs' heads, killers, right? What Birmingham did, first 20 minutes, they tried to play around, like you say, Matt, find that weakness. And they found it. And what the weakness was, because our defence was sitting a bit higher, we were much more compact, and in midfield, we looked better. We did look better against Birmingham than we have in most games. But what that meant is all they had to do was ping it to whoever was marking our wing-backs. And obviously, they're not marking it because they're in possession. But May and Stansfield both went out to the wing-backs time and time again after 30 minutes in. And all Birmingham did was get their centre midfielders, Peck and Iwata, just to turn and hit their feet as quick as possible. Because what happened then was, it meant Lees or Pearson was on the halfway line with either May or Stanfield. And all they were after, and they knew they had to get it right once, was that ball from whoever's on with a wing-back behind the centre-backs, and it's a race. And that's what the goal came from. It was one-touch football, bang, 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 straight behind Lees. Stansfield pulls it back, May scores a goal. Fantastic. And if Lees doesn't make his last-ditch attempt on another chance, they'd have scored a second goal very similar to that in the game. And now, you see, my problem with the entire way Town are going about the games here is that I honestly don't believe, unless you're Man City, you can have one way of playing football and play it all the time. Because every professional football club has so many data analysts and performance analysts, and they can watch so much tape and see how other teams have broken Town down and done all this kind of stuff, that if you only have one dimension, they will find a way to get at your weaknesses, right? So you have to adapt, unless you spend the money to bring the best players in the world in. Birmingham have brought in 25 to 30 million pounds worth of players, right, in the summer. Even they adapted the way they played on Tuesday night against us, the best team in the division, the team that are going to walk away with it, no doubt, potentially getting a record points total. They adapted for us, right? But we're not adapting for anybody else. And I can't accept it, Matt. And you and I have had a little bit of a disagreement in that I honestly believe we should have prepared a plan B in pre-season. And I understand he's only just come in duff and he wants to get his plan A bang on. And like you said, plan A is not even there really either. So you understand to some extent that he wanted to put all the effort into that. But now we've got no fast centre-back. So his entire system is falling down because we've got no agility in the defensive line. But we can't really play anything else because whenever we do, it looks awful. But then he's persisting with this, was a 3-5-2, which actually against Birmingham was more of a 5-3-2, wasn't it? Really, we were a little bit okay. The back line was higher, but then the wing backs were a bit deeper. It was such, and it's becoming such a frustrating thing for me to see as played the same way week in and week out when it's not working. That's what's done football to me. If you try something else and it fails, absolutely fine. But we are in, today is the 3rd of October. We have 3 months basically to get to before we can bring in new centre backs that can play Duff's system, right? It's a long time. And in League One, that'll be what, 20, it'll be 15 games, 16 games. The season will be so far into it by then that if we aren't in the top 6 or close to the top 6, it's a hard challenge to get into the playoffs where most of us expected to be or wanted to be at the beginning of the season. These next 3 months are massive. And if we continue to play this way, we'll lose a lot of games. We will lose a lot of games because the confidence has gone. The ability doesn't seem to be there. And we're not really trying anything else. I'm really quite lost with it all, Matt. And like you say, Bojan Radulovic being our best option at number 9 blows my mind because I thought it was laughable up until recently. But he really looks like he's the option that we have. But that's how desperate we are at the moment because what we're playing with just isn't working. I thought the Birmingham game, to be honest, was better, if Art-Trick insists. But it still felt like we were a League Two club coming up against a Championship club in an FA Cup game. That's how it felt. It kind of felt like we closed it down a little bit. When we went 1-0 behind, we didn't really ask many questions. We just kind of shut up shop a little bit, which is some sort of progression because up until then, we haven't really been able to do that at all. It's just got to change. It has to change. The Birmingham game isn't the be-all and end-all. On paper, at the beginning of the season, if you lose that 3-0 and get played off the park, you're like, well, they've spent so much money. It's absolutely fine. The Birmingham game is not the problem. To me, the problem is the lack of willingness to change the way we're playing, even though we're losing. I don't understand any sort of rationale to stick with one system when we've lost so many games. And it's not even like when David Wagner came in, Matt, his style of football at the end of the first season, we were losing games, but you could see it clicking nearly. You could just see it, couldn't you? Like, you're getting there, we're getting there. We'll get there in time. To me, in my amateurish eyes, I don't see that at the moment. I don't see that with Duff football. I don't see us getting better week on week and learning these new patterns of play and attacking system. In fact, we look worse in attack and worse in defence. It looks like we've regressed, not progressed at all.
We have.
And if that's the case, then surely you have to look at a different option. I just don't know what that answer is because every time we've swapped to the 4-4-2 with a diamond in the middle, that hasn't looked great either. And that to me is down to a lack of preparation in the summer for this plan B. But we have to find some answers. We have got to get more value out of the players we've got between now and January if we want to be anywhere relevant by the end of the season. And this Barnsley game, obviously we'll talk about that on the drive-in later on in the week, is crucial because it's a home game against a team that's form's not great. They've got the main guy, Phillips, out missing on Saturday. But none of us know what we're going to play. We're expecting we're going to go down to a 3-5-2 again with the same style. But I don't think any fan going down wants to see that. They want to see something new. And if it doesn't work, the murmurs and the grumbles in the stadium on Saturday is going to be pretty vociferous. It's not going to be a nice environment. And we really are now at a crucial part of the season where it has to improve quick. Otherwise, the atmosphere and the apathy, as you spoke about earlier, will creep in very, very quickly. And I don't know if the club are ready for it yet.
One thing that sort of struck me is I think when we finished the transfer window, everyone was going, "Oh, that's a striker, and that's an A+ transfer window." I think when you sort of look back on it now as well, you're thinking, well, we've put all our eggs in a basket for a system which doesn't work, and we've not really got any flexibility within now. We've signed so many strikers. If we want to go to a back four, we don't have a left back that they seem to trust. Josh Ruffles hasn't played a lot of football. And you're kind of thinking, well, actually now it's looking like a pretty average one. and I think especially you look at the senior pros again. I've had a nibble at them before in the past, and you just think, well, the system is letting us down. But I think the senior pros do a lot as well, and they have over the last couple of years. I don't necessarily mean that Tom Lees, etc., is going out and playing there intentionally poorly, but it's not just him, but the whole confidence of the squad, that everything, and that comes from your older pros. Everything just seems to be on a downer. The Tom Lees interview, I thought people went way over the top on, but I understand it because of where we're at. And I think when you look at his body language as well, and it's a little bit like everything's not great kind of thing. And you need more from the older end, don't you? And I don't think we're getting that, and we don't think we've had it for years. In honesty, I think that we've struggled there. Last thing, Killer, and then we have to call this one to a stop. Goalkeeper Jacob Chapman's played third choice goalkeeper. When Nichols got injured, there was a lot of noise, I think, in my circles about, we're going to have to try and get an emergency loan. I'm not so sure about that now, actually. I thought he played really well against Birmingham, and his distribution with his feet is actually better than Maxwell and Nichols. I think he's done all right. I thought he made a couple of good saves that he didn't make look great, but his positioning and things, I thought he did really well against Birmingham. And I know you can't expect young goalkeepers without a lot of games behind them to be brilliant every week, and he will have a dip and he will go up and down. But I think he's done all right. I think I'm kind of sat there thinking, well, if Nichols is out for 8 weeks and Maxwell's back in a couple, fit enough to play in a couple of weeks, then just leave it as it is. It seems all right. I don't think we need one, do you?
No, I don't think so either. And to be fair to Chapman, I think he's doing a bit of a disservice. I think he looked better than Maxwell has when he's been in goal for us. To be honest, if you were trying to say which one is the more senior pro with more games under his belt, you'd go with Chapman. He looks. Do you know, like when we had Ryan Schofield in goal? God bless him. And I feel like I've got to put that in there. You've got a nerve about you as a fan. Sometimes just keepers. It must be charisma, some sort of body language that they give out where you can tell if they're confident or not. I think you can just generally look at them and think, oh, look, it's a bit like when a penalty taker's stepping up, can't you? Sometimes you just know if they're feeling it and you know if they're not. With certain goalkeepers, when Smithies had his debut, you knew he was going to be fine. You just knew straight away. I know we let in 5, I think, didn't he, at Ellen Road? Was that his debut, I think?
Yeah, but you could see.
You can just tell. You can just tell the body language, and they've got something about him. Chapman, to me, looks like a bona fide number one. I'm not going to say he's not going to make mistakes. He might have an absolute shocker on Saturday, but up until now, he's looked absolutely fine and serviceable. And whilst our Dad's army of a centre back selection at the moment are really old, and that has massive downsides when it comes to pace and agility. When it comes to leadership from like organising set pieces and stuff, Lees and Pearson will take care of that. And that allows Chapman, an inexperienced goalie, to have less to do. Whereas Nichols is there, you can see him shouting at everybody, getting people on the post, doing whatever he wants to do. Chapman has a bit of a luxury there that he doesn't have to, because he's got some really experienced senior pros that will actually take that kind of worry away from him. And to me, he's collected every cross he should come and collect. He's punched everything he should punch. He's not made an error. And I think as a keeper, that's what I look for anyway. Not somebody who's going to make the best saves. That's a bonus. But if nobody's making any errors, that's kind of the start you need when you're a backup, especially if you're a third choice keeper starting your first proper games for the club. He's done, for me, well.
That's it for this week then. Killer, thanks for that. Keep your eyes peeled for the drive-in. It'll be with you very shortly. Let's hit the music.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up, bring the cup back to Huddersfield.